We're back to Going Under. It's a very fun anti-establishment roguelite that everyone should play. And yeah, it was released 2 years ago. It got lukewarm reception in my opinion. I know a lot of people who play video games. I barely met anyone who played this. We looked at last time what this game already has achieved in terms of its reach, its marketing, and its communication. Found was that they've actually done pretty well for themselves. In fact, they have reached a lot of gamers, and I think they did a pretty darn good job at game release towards gamers. They went to video game conferences to talk to developers and connect with the communities there. They were published by Team 17, who most likely are behind getting them into Nintendo Direct, onto the PlayStation's YouTube channel. Relatable, funny content on their social media profiles. They have a great Twitter and a booming TikTok right now. They were relatable in terms of topics, like they were making fun of crypto and stuff before that was a thing people did. So yeah, pretty impressive stuff, honestly. But still, what happened? Why didn't it go as well as it could have? Because again, it looked like everything was going according to plan. I would argue there's two things. The first thing is, I believe that there's a large untapped audience that they didn't market to at all. We're gonna try to pin down if that's correct, and also find a research-based target audience tonight. Second is, they released between two mastodons of video games, Spelunky 2 and Hades. And for those of you who play video games and you remember back to 2020, you will remember that Hades was like Game of the Year candidate on almost every single list. Spelunky has an insane following. People who, like all Mario speedrunners, play Spelunky, I feel. It's a cult game who garners a lot of attention when it's out there. Definitely a terrible time for an unknown studio with their first game to release between these massive games, which are also indie games, mind you, and that makes it even worse, I'd argue, because if this was like the new Legend of Zelda game from Nintendo and the new God of War game from Santa Monica Studios for PlayStation, that would have been different, because those games are kind of in different categories, different price ranges first and foremost, but also they are the type of games that always going to take attention no matter what. So people are still on the lookout for smaller experiences. So the indies kind of compete more with each other, I would argue, than the actual big games. It's kind of like they have their little river and the big games are on the sea. So that's the situation so far. There's an untapped audience. We want to find it. How do we find it? We gotta find... Okay, that didn't work out the way I wanted. Their target audience. Target audience is, as I mentioned many times, a buzzword that is used in communication, and it's basically just the type of people you want to talk to. And I say people because there's a lot of different types of people and audiences out there. I think this is what a lot of people think about when they think a target audience. They look at age, ethnicity, gender, stage in life. That's fine and all. I'm not saying these are useless metrics, but they can be quite hindering. In fact, they can be quite damaging to your brand and to your product, or whatever you're trying to push or to communicate to these people. So let's take a look at an example. Here we have the same group of characters. We have over here the classic. Now we have another character, millennial streamer. Up here, we have ourselves a classic emo girl who probably listened to Evanescence. Then we have this child who seems very energetic and excited about being in this lineup. Then we have this lady who's too busy watching New Girl to pay attention to us. Then we have this man who's Jeff Bezos in a very bad disguise. And then we have this model right here in the middle of a shoot. And then we have this dude who's presumably chilling out with a religious text. So we have a wonderful lineup of 6 characters. And on the very top, right up here, we got ourselves some PlayStation controllers representing, you guessed it, video games, or PlayStation specifically. Actually, we can look at PlayStation specifically. That's actually better for the example. My question to you is, who do you think is a fit for PlayStation as a target audience? Anyone have any? Do I have any viewers? I have 2 viewers. Hey, if you have any opinions on who fits here specifically, hey, Matt, thank you. All of them depending on the app. Thank you, Matt. That is exactly my point, and you are absolutely making a very good statement there. Thank you, Matt, for replying. If you look to old video game marketing, you will notice that there was a lot of mistakes made on this point in the past. Literally, the Google search is just tasteless video game commercials, and they are all from the 80s and 90s. So real it hurts, and you have the characters coming out and fighting these dudes in the arcade, I presume, which is like, you know, there's nothing directly wrong about it. It's just very child oriented. I don't feel like you attract like this guy, for example. Like, I don't think this guy is too excited about this. Well, maybe he is actually. Although I don't feel like an edgy teen would go with this. I feel like the child could be excited about it. Like, yeah, that's funny. They're coming out of the screen. This girl would just be like, no, thank you. I mean, I'm making a lot of assumptions now. Maybe she'd love it, but you can see that, you know, it might not fit everyone. And this isn't like, this is far from as bad as it can get. There's a lot of really sexist ones. Basically, it's a Sega commercial displaying, as you can see there, a joystick looking like a very phallic object, saying that the more you play with it, the harder it gets. There's a whole Kotaku article talking about bad video game advertisements from this time. I'm just going to get into all of them. I do want to bring out PlayStation as an example. I'm going to give you a few ones here in a second. By basically having two focused advertising, back then they were of course very focused on male demographics, on younger demographics, teenagers, and so by doing so you might actually alienate even the teenagers because they find it cringe that you're trying so hard to reach them. But of course it was a different time. Yeah, here is a collective terms we could give for people who play video games. People who fill their free time with accessible experiences. That is a target audience. It doesn't include any age, it doesn't include any gender, it doesn't include any ethnicity. It just mentions things that the people that enjoy your service, product, experience has in common. And yeah, that's all it has to be. Of course, I'm not saying that these metrics, again, are useless. Sometimes they're very useful. Gives you some data, and especially like geographic data. If you are a store and you're located in a specific place and you're only selling something within that area, obviously you're very interested in reaching people in that specific place and not all across the world. So that's something to think about. But of course, in an ever increasingly globalized world, that is also becoming less and less of a thing. Gee, sometimes this camera is just wonking out, man. Sometimes your competition is not the people you're in direct competition with, but the people who might steal your time away. What are other accessible experiences? Well, many. Many. It could be everything from Netflix and video to other video games to books, for example. You might pull out your Kindle. Podcasts is an accessible experience that might steal time from your gaming. Watching streamers or other creators is something like this. And of course, literally all social media out there is a direct substitute to video games. And that's your real competition too. So that's another thing that's good using this kind of thinking when you're creating a target audience. It gives you a better idea of who you're actually up against. I wanted to end before we move on to my next point here on a video here. This is some old PlayStation ads, and I feel like they are relevant to today as well. This was directed by David Lynch. I don't know what to say about it. This is a real commercial. This is a real commercial from for PlayStation 2. You can argue who was the target audience there. Who were they planning on hitting with this one? And I think a viewer in the comment section here said it best. Until this day, David Lynch is still not really sure what PlayStation 2 really is. And yeah, but I did find it funny because I was curious. Okay, I watched this funny old video and we're laughing of it now, but what did they look like nowadays? You know, what's the PlayStation 5 commercial? And I present to you a PlayStation 5 commercial. We might skip a little bit. This is pretty long, honestly. There is some differences to note here, though, which shows kind of things have moved forward a bit. You will see a far more diverse group of characters. I of course showed you a really weird one from the past, but of course most of them are very male-dominated. They're also very, how to say, ethnically similar as well, to put it that way. You will see a lot more diversity of people, of color, representation of game things. I mean, if you notice around the video here, you'll see hints to actual video games. So like there was Pac-Man there for a second, there was a statue of, you have a picture of the news God of War in the background of the King's office there. And I think I saw a Aloy statue as well from the Horizon games too. There's more Easter eggs like that within the commercial. And I'm guessing they did that to get people to engage with the video and actually try to find all the Easter eggs so they can upload a video on their YouTube channel saying 10 Easter eggs you didn't see in the PlayStation commercial. Anyways, this whole thing, it's really weird. We can just kind of go forward to the end here. They kind of a lot of the same towards the end here. They capture the king, I'm assuming. There you have it. But so I find it funny, as I mentioned, with it's much higher production value, and of course they moved forward with again more diversity. It's still the same DNA, you know what I mean? Like it's still a really weird video. Honestly, I think just like the David Lynch one, give it 10 years and we'll look back on this one as well. I guess that PlayStation one is like 20 years now? Yeah, dang. Give it 20 more years and we'll look back on this one and we'll think exactly the same thing. Except the David Lynch one will still get weirder. And yeah, let's move on to one more thing. So sometimes your audience is not just as simple as one or two people. It's actually different type of audiences which affect each other. And here we have an example of that. So what you'll see here is what a lot of companies do nowadays is a very common example, and you probably experienced it yourself many times, is that companies reach out to a streamer or influencer or something like this who is their primary target. They try to get these people to be interested in their product, service, etc. And by extension, they will affect their secondary audience, which might even be their real target, which is the viewers of this person, so the people that they can influence and that trust this person. I actually don't have a webcam. This is an app on my phone which streams my phone video to my PC. And as you can see, it's not ideal. Not at all. Alright, okay.